Welcome to Double Coverage Radio. Tonight we are here with Cory Miller, the head coach at M State, a junior college league in the state of Minnesota. Sitting alongside me is my co-host, Dave Mogensen. My name is Travis Pipes. Cory, welcome to the show. Great to have you on tonight to talk a little bit about football. We'll talk a little bit about the landscape of sports and some of the uncertainty of that from your position as a head coach. And we're going to talk a little bit about some breaking news across both college and professional football. Cory, how you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking some football.
We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. Obviously, you're in a position of having a little bit more free time. Can you tell our audience, from your perspective, what it's been like to balance the landscape of uncertainty as a head coach, and how has that affected things like recruiting, being in contact with your players, game planning, installing your offense and defense, just the general perspective of what that's been like for you?
So, it's really, kind of been just a lot of kind of making stuff up as you kind of go. It's, obviously a couple of weeks ago we got the call that, our season's canceled for the fall. And obviously that's the one thing that's, kind of etched in stone. Everything that's happening after that is, kind of Play-Doh and it's kind of getting shifted around and trying to figure out what we're going to make of it. But, it really started, about, spring break. I still remember we just finished our last lifting session on a Thursday, broke with the guys, tell them to, have safe travels and stuff for spring break. And we'll be getting back at it again at, 6 a.m. on that Monday morning after spring break. And that was really the last time, I was able to speak to the team as a whole in person as the COVID kind of started going from there and we started shutting things down. Then we extended our spring break and then went remote. So, at that time, you really, didn't quite understand the duration that we're going to go through this. And so, they start canceling things, but, at the same time, you kind of think like, okay, there's no way this is going to reach the football season. And then, kind of here we are. So it's really turned everything upside down into like what you normally, when I'm having these conversations right now, this time of year, it's, season preview, talking about our players, our schedule, some of the challenges, who's going to, who to watch and stuff. And now we're talking about what's next, where do we go from here? And so that's, obviously there's nobody you can call up. This has never happened before. There's no, Nick Saban and Bill Belichick haven't coached through a pandemic before. So it's not like you can call somebody up and be like, hey, how did you guys handle it the last time?
Right.
We're making it up and then trying to see, who's got the best idea and then try to, be the fast second with it. And so, right now, the first thing is just to kind of figure out what's best for our returners. And then, then obviously our freshmen and really the ones that kind of get hurt the most in this is the returners, the sophomores, because this is kind of their season, especially the junior college level. We're a 2-year program. We're not a 4-year program. So this is the year they want their film. We're trying to place them after this. And now they get kind of delayed and they've already started. The freshmen have some options, because they just finished their year. They haven't started college yet. They haven't taken any classes yet. So there's some different things we can do with them, but they're kind of stuck in purgatory. And so that was kind of the first thing is, all right, what do we do with them? And, as of right now, we're still trying to figure that out. The one thing we did, I don't know what, some of the other teams did was, I told everybody, it's free agency for them, and obviously we recruit them. We had them here. I'm not gonna, if you want to go try to find a place to play football, that you think might play this fall, then by all means, I don't want to slow you down. I'm going to support whatever decision you make, because we're not having fall. And so if there is some place somewhere that's going to have college football and you can go there, I don't want to take that away from you and that opportunity or that type of deal. Same thing with the freshmen. And so we've had some freshmen, try to go find some other opportunities. We're going to go try to play somewhere else. We got some that are taking a gap year or gap semester where they're just not going to take any classes. We got some that are actually going to come on campus and do school in the fall. And then some that are just going to stay home, but they're going to do some online stuff. So like we got kind of like within our team, they're in like different type of groups. And the hope is to try to bring them back in January But no one's got a crystal ball. I have no idea what we're going to look like then. So, but that's kind of what we're aiming for right now is to get the team back and and see what we have and where we're short some numbers, and then obviously go and start recruiting any transfers or the class of 2021 to fill out our roster. That we have the option to have spring football, but obviously we got to get the okay from the presidents. But we're in northern Minnesota, so that presents some challenges of how do you play a spring season. So we're kicking around different ideas for what we can maybe do in the spring that's a little bit unorthodox or something like that to do something. But really kind of the focal point is to make sure we're playing in August of 2021.
Sure.
What's been the biggest challenge for you outside of the recruiting element and prepping for the upcoming season and saying, okay, these things have been discontinued now? How are you going to look towards, there's spring opportunities for football. There's opportunities maybe next summer. Being a bridge school like you are with the players that only have a couple of seasons of eligibility, do you see that being a challenge for attracting potential talent in the upcoming year and maybe the next 2 seasons?
I do. I think you kind of could potentially see a logjam because obviously, depending on who plays, normally you have a natural progression. Your seniors graduate, you'll have attrition and melt between your underclassmen, and then that's where that frees up the scholarships and roster spots and things. And then you fill in with the class of 2021. But if everybody stays, you basically now got kind of a logjam right there, and so it creates kind of a situation where it's like, okay, how many kids from the class of 2021 can I recruit? We're not an unlimited roster. We have so many lockers, so many jerseys. We're a junior college. One of our goals is to try to get guys filmed to get out and go play somewhere else. And so we're not trying to carry 120 guys. We're going to carry 70. And so we don't play the JV schedules and stuff like that. So we want to have enough numbers for competition. And so it kind of creates that. And so right now for us, recruiting wise, at this point in time, no one wants to hear from a non-scholarship junior college, so we always kind of come in late as it is anyway. We have a kind of a different approach to recruiting than when I was at a 4-year school and stuff like that. So we get kids, we get on them early, especially a lot of the area kids and stuff, but we're getting bounce backs that kind of reach back to us. And then, some kids that maybe don't qualify later, just can't get that test score. And so you kind of get them at a little different phases. So it's a little bit different putting together the roster than say that, when I was, coaching 4-year football that we go through here. So, we're kind of in where we kind of evaluate guys and obviously creating our, wide net of 2021 kids. But, I don't know how many offensive linemen we'll take. I don't know how many quarterbacks we'll take yet. Because a lot of it's going to depend on, when can we have the next team activity? That's the biggest question. That's the hardest thing is, okay, when's the next time I'll be able to get in front of this group and who's going to be there, and if is it 6 months from now or is it a year from now? That makes planning really hard. And what are you going to look like? You recruit an offensive lineman and he's 290 now. He has a year off. He might be 370. Who knows? So it's one of those things where there's just so much uncertainty. I think as a head coach and as being a coach, you want to control things. We're all control freaks to some extent, and we're now the spectator in the stand, just watching things unfold. We have no voice, no opinion. And so it's kind of a weird, helpless feeling that normally you don't have as a, coach. You usually get to control a lot of the environment. And right now we're in no control.
Cory, where does your staff go from this? So, you kind of probably were preparing to get ready for the season, and then the season gets pulled your rug right out from underneath you. Where's your staff go? What are you guys focusing on as a staff?
So, being junior college, we're a little bit different than, traditional 4-year schools. And I'm the only full-time coach that's, on the campus. I'm very similar to high school where, my offensive coordinator, Coach Reese, he's around basically kind of full-time as it is, but he's not necessarily hired full-time through the school. But the other ones are kind of a couple area teachers and people work in the area that we give stipends to kind of have another full-time job and then kind of walk up. So for them, in some ways, this actually kind of, one of the things that was scaring me was, we got a couple guys that were going to coach that were teachers, at the high school, and there's worries from the transmission of COVID from maybe them to our team or from our team to them to school, and then they have to miss time from work and stuff like that. So there's kind of that uncertainty of should they coach, should they not, how it's going to affect their real income, in terms of that. So that was another hurdle that's not common to a lot of college football programs. That's common to where we're at. And so that was obviously a big issue. Some of them, I think they're going to kind of wait and see if high school football is going to happen. And they may jump on for the year and try to coach at a high school or something like that. Or just, see if we got something in the spring. But it really kind of becomes a waiting game. And, I just told them, like, you got to take care of, number one, yourself, and figure out what's the best opportunity for you to, if you can get in the game, or if you just want to take a fall off and be a normal person for once, tell my fiance, hey, we should celebrate Labor Day. I don't remember the last time I was able to do anything on a Labor Day. So, and hopefully I don't have to have another Labor Day off anytime soon. So, that's definitely a little bit different. So, it's kind of hard because, I can't give them any concrete answers, either of, okay, starting January 13th, when classes start back up, we're lifting and we're going, I don't know. Shoot, a month ago, you would have asked me, I said 90% chance we're playing, and then now we're not, and so everything kind of keeps changing week by week, and you can see it all through if you follow social media and stuff.
Cory, how different is college football going to be when we return, whenever that is, in terms of not just the preparation and the recruiting, but in terms of maybe seeing the same type of product given these safety regulations that are going to be in place?
It'll be interesting. There's a lot of things that kind of contradict themselves. I think I saw Herm Edwards, said it best. He said there's no social distancing in football. The only position that wants a social distance is the quarterback. So I don't, like, some of these guidelines and stuff. I don't know. You can't do it. And then and they're asking you to kind of you can run in, you can hit each other, tackle each other, block each other on the field, but then when you come to the sideline, you're gonna spread out and not be anywhere near. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So when we were first starting off and going through some of the restrictions, they were saying we're gonna have to sanitize the balls in between plays and stuff, and I'm like, how many footballs are we have to buy? Those things aren't cheap. And then they came out and they said, no, it doesn't really pass COVID, so you don't need to do that. So, everything just keeps changing it. So I think for the teams that really try to kick it off, you're going to see a lot of very, being cautious. And it may have to, depending on how many you can practice at a time, you're going to probably see the practice formats get completely changed from what they used to be. And then based on the results of things, if things are going good, then I think you'll start to see a shift back to a little bit of what we're normally used to. If things go bad, then you're potentially looking at seasons shut down. I think that would be the worst, is the start up and stop, for anybody. And so I think, when you get on the field and you play it, I think it won't be anything necessarily different than what we've seen. I don't know how you change that. The thing that I worry about a little bit is just player safety, because I don't know, with some of the precautions and stuff, if, you're going to have the same type of buildup and acclimatization that you could get as you previously could. I don't know what that'll look like. And, same thing like with pro football and the short buildup, what's that do to, player safety? And I think that to me is more concerning than anything.
Yeah, we talk about sort of the player safety element of this whole dynamic. There's a little bit of uncertainty from how that's going to be done. The NFL literally just released their play sheet, as it were, on the regulations, the safety controls, access to different facilities. How's that going to affect, the size of your rosters on game days? And that even has a trickle down, I think, effect to the division of football that you're playing in junior college. Any team that fields, an 11-on-11 type program, right, is going to have to look at it from the perspective of what's the safety element going to be and what's the best approach for these things. And the reality is, and Dave went through the experience of playing college football at Wisconsin Lutheran here in Wisconsin. You just don't know until you get into the locker room and you are in that environment. you can plan it out as much as you want. You can have a playbook as much as you want, right, Dave? What's your guys' take? Both of you having the coaching background of we're preparing for some of this unknown, and how big of an impact is that going to have on your role as a coach? So maybe not just the X's and O's anymore at this point.
It's a huge thing. I think obviously you know, X and O's won't change. You're still coaching your same schemes and stuff. That's going to be the easy part. It's getting these guys to wear their masks and one of the big issues is 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds are going to be 18 and 19-year-olds. We can't lock them in their rooms and expect them to stay there. They're going to go out. They're going to intermingle. You're seeing that nowadays and stuff like that. Like, you can't control it, and so you got to try to educate them and get them to make the right decisions and being like, hey, you go do this, you might cost the season because now we got to quarantine. And that's the other thing that comes into it is if you do have a breakout on your team now, how long you got to put them in there for 14 days. Now it's affecting your depth chart. Could there be forfeitures of games? Because, what if you have a breakout in your own line and you don't have enough linemen to play? Like, can you play the game? And so it definitely is going to create massive what ifs and headaches for coaches from an administrative side of things, and even the travel and how do you sanitize? You got your pads and things like that. And, who's going to do that? And you're going to rely on the individual. Will they do a good enough job of sanitizing it, or do I need to do it? Well, now there's another thing. How's laundry going to work? Hey, what of us as a coach? One of the things I was thinking about was, hey, what happens if I get it? And I got to go away for 2 weeks. Okay. Then like, if our kids were, who's calling our offense? Who's calling our defense? If that goes down. So I think there's some unanswered questions of what's that going to look like.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off that, the people are really worried about major BCS and NFL, and they kind of live in a different world compared to the majority of football players in this country, right? The majority of kids are playing football are playing at levels where they don't have all that kind of money and all that kind of influence to make those decisions. It's things like you said, like who's actually going to sanitize these pads after every practice? Who's going to do that? Because most of the, your program, most of the smaller programs, and some of we had Eric Tresky on a few weeks ago, and similar sentiments. Like, we don't have guys just hanging out at practice, like 40 guys just want to be a part of Alabama football, right? And they'll come do it for free, or they'll do it for an internship. Most programs don't have that. And you talk about high school programs and youth football and small college and junior college and D3 and even the D2 level. A lot of these questions are hard to answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, essentially it would be Dave, you bring up some great points. There's definitely an element of maybe there's got to be a little bit bigger commitment to the team concept for the teams that aren't necessarily the Alabamas and the Clemsons and the Notre Dames of the world.
Well, you look at, here's some numbers. I was on a conference call that right now, it's all estimates right now. Division I is anticipating spending $300,000 on testing for the season alone, and another $1 million on migration techniques. Now, outside of the Power 5 schools, who's got $1.3 million running around there?
Exactly.
Before everything went, we contacted the bus company, and at that point, the most people they were going to allow on a charter bus to a road game is 13. So you do the math. That's like 5 charter buses to a road game. You know.
Yeah, you need 6 coach buses.
Yeah, and so like, how are you going to afford that? On top of like the weight room, we were, they're talking, 9, 10 people in a time. We have 70 dudes, like, let's say an hour lift. That's 7 hours.
Your whole day.
Through there. Like, who's going to, do this? And so like, and one thing I don't think people are necessarily thinking about too is how will the players react to this? Because, your whole time you're brought up as football's, run a certain way, you're coached a certain way. And then all of a sudden you kind of show up in this game that you're used to playing, and it's a game you love, but all of a sudden it gets just, morphed and transformed into something that you don't know if you necessarily like, and you just might be like, hey, this is not what I want. This isn't what I signed up for. And then did they just bolt, and just say, I'm gonna wait a year and see if it gets back to normal, And so I think that's a wild card too, is how are the players going to react to all the new restrictions and everything.
Yeah, the NFL, just today a story broke via Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, where they're going to be committed to spending $75 million on COVID-19 testing for the duration. That's a 7.5, not 7.5, $75 million. So must be nice to have that much money in the coffers. The other thing that kind of comes into question, right, Cory, and you guys as coaches, you're also involved in the community. There's a relationship aspect to being part of a football program locally. What type of constraint is it going to have on the communities if the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears, the Lions, and the Vikings are using 30% of the COVID tests locally in their area so that NFL players can be quote unquote ready for game day? Do you think there's going to be any potential fallout from that type of a scenario?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. I mean, how are they getting tested if the normal person's not getting tested? I mean, you're trying to get people back in the K through 12 schools, and you're talking about testing for there. I mean, there's like broader issues. I know that was one of the things that people are concerned about. Like obviously, colleges are worried about when all these kids kind of come back. Will there be an explosion of COVID within the communities that they live in? Take for instance where we live, and there's not very many active cases right now running around. You bring a bunch of students back, and that could change. And how's that going to affect things? And for the bigger programs and things like that, then you got the economic fallout. I think I was reading that Alabama, if they don't play home games this year, it's going to be anywhere between $2 to $4 billion effect on businesses in Tuscaloosa. When you're that restaurant, you're that hotel, you're that bar, you're that, tourist shop type deal, you depend on that income, and that could really mess you up if all these people aren't flooding in the, Tuscaloosa on game days and buying those T-shirts and, drinking your beer and, eating your food. And so I think you're going to have community ramifications from every different direction, especially at the highest levels.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be all sorts of unknown variables in this entire equation. You are watching Double Coverage Radio tonight, our Chalk Talk series with head coach Cory Miller of M State, Minnesota Junior College. I am Travis Pipes. He is Dave Mogensen. Cory, what's been your take on sort of being in part of a Midwestern program and your connection to the community? How important are sports, especially now in the landscape that we are living in?
I think they're huge, and especially not even just from the player standpoint, coaches, the mental health aspect of things. The being able to be around your teammates and being able to have that conversation and stuff, and then obviously probably more so at the high school level. Especially some of these small communities in the Midwest. I mean, they really rally around those high school programs, and it's something to do on Friday night and now all of a sudden you're not going to let them attend there and things like that. I mean, now you're missing out on important moments within your children's lives and stuff like that. I think, from the biggest thing, like I wonder is, for us, we're a 2-year school, we're junior college, and one of the populations that we recruit from is an underrepresented population, and people that we're going to that maybe don't have the grades and stuff like that. We're trying to fix that and get them back on the track and get them into a 4-year school and allow them to graduate with a bachelor school. And, without football, the only reason they were going to attend college is because of football. And here's an avenue to allow them to use the game to create a better opportunity for themselves. And what happens to those kids that get lost in the shuffle and stuff like that and need that. And what are they going to do with all their free time? It's you think about it, 20 hours a week, or more, you're probably putting in that sport that's free up there. It's 80 hours a month. You have more free time and stuff like that. And so like added up over a year, it adds up to a lot. What's all these kids going to do with that time? And so, and I think that's something that, people don't necessarily, obviously safety is important, but that's also the down the line fallout you're going to run into is, what's depression going to look like for some kids? What's, like the mental health aspect of things? Because, for a lot of these people, this is their identity. And that's one of the things as a coach that we try to do in our program is, and that's it's good that you have an identity within your sport, but it can't be the only thing in your life. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it is the only thing in their life. And you've got to be able to do that. And so we've got to try to expose you to other things within the community and create other interests and other hobbies to become more of a complete person, because at some point, every person ends up being an ex-athlete. Okay. It could be after high school, it could be after college. If you're gifted enough, maybe you get to play, further along, but at some point you're becoming an ex-football player. And so what's next after that, And so, we're losing the opportunity to expose these guys to different things and maybe other interests that can take them, longer than the couple years that they're playing football for us. And so I think that's something that people just don't talk enough about.
Yeah, I think we could probably do a whole show on the ramifications of looking down that path of being an ex-football guy. I literally had a conversation this weekend with a guy I coached in arena who's, the arena season was also, that's a spring season that was canceled. He's been, he played college football and did that. And then he's playing arena football, and he's so afraid to stop playing arena football because then he won't be that football guy. And everybody who knows him as the football guy. And I think, like you said, that's the fact that that's not talked about often is a disgrace, because that's a huge problem that you probably went through it. I know I went through it when I stopped playing. It's like everybody knows me as a football guy, and now I'm not really a football guy anymore.
Absolutely, and one of the reasons you get into coaching is you don't want to get away from the game. It's not golf. It's as long as I can swing a club decently, I can go sit in a cart and hit a ball, but you can't take hits and for the rest of your life and things like that. Eventually Father Time's going to catch up to you. But those people that really identify with that's where you get scared, because now you're taking a really important part, whether you think it's that important or not, it is to them. And so you've got to consider that. And how do you help fill that void and make sure that they're making right choices and doing right things and not trying to fill it with things that are going to lead them down the wrong path.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of consistently is in my mind for a couple of reasons. It's a big deal, right? So we've seen the state of California announce that they're not having a fall season. Some other around the country, other states and conferences have done that. Just here in Wisconsin today, one of the larger conferences, the Big Eight, that has Madison, Beloit. You're probably familiar with them from your time at Rockford. That Big Eight conference says they're not having any fall sports. So in my head, it goes back to that senior, because playing college football is not easy to do. 95 to 98% of high school football players will never play in college. So there's that group of guys who are seniors in 2021. This is going to be their fall 2020 is going to be their last season of high school football, and it's getting pulled out from underneath them. And I say that twofold, because I have a cousin who's going to be who's class of 2021, who's going to go into his senior year. And what are you thinking about as far as class of 2021 recruits? Anybody you're talking to in regards to that aspect? Like what do those guys do? What can they?
That's a tough one. There's obviously been some Division IIs I've seen, that have been running some camps. So there's at least a chance for them to go out a little bit. Some NEIs, I think, have been starting to run some camps out there. That's usually a big part of the summer and the recruitment process, is getting out to the NDSU and the SDSU and the, the big time universities and their prospect camps and stuff, and getting noticed. That's where, especially us at the small level, start to get a lot of names and stuff that they trickle down. Everything's kind of a funnel. The class of 2021, like the Division I kids, like they're already known. Like the ones that already got the offers, like they're gonna be fine. It's that fringe kid that needed that senior season that might get him an FCS offer, or potentially a late Division I offer, or a kid that maybe was behind a really good football player. That went to, University of Minnesota. Now, here's his chance to sign. Maybe he's an NSIC football player and can play at Mankato or Winona or something, but now he doesn't get his film. And then as a coach, when you're going through there, you're gonna have to go off measurables and things. Maybe you don't quite have those. You need that film to back up that you're a couple inches too short, or you don't quite got the weight that people are looking for. But, I think that's the scary part for those guys is, what are they going to have to kind of the differentiate himself from everybody else, especially if you're missing one of those key elements as you're trying to battle for that any type of scholarship. And so for them, the biggest hope is to be able to have some sort of season and be able to get the film and stuff like that. But if not, you're going to really have to kind of go to, I've seen kids like kind of filming them doing workouts and running, the pro agilities and the 40s, and you're going to have to get creative and do those different things to try to get noticed. And send those guys out and be proactive. Obviously, high school coaches need to do a good job of really, probably more than ever, lobbying for their kids, because obviously they've worked with them the most. They have the best idea of their ability levels and things like that. So, especially if you're used to piping out kids, being able to get in the head and be like, hey, this kid's good as this kid, and he played here, and so, it's. I think the thing is in some places, some of the lower levels could get some really nice steals. I think that's one area we could really take advantage of is, all right, you may not got your senior season, so come play 1 year for us, get your film, and let's get you out somewhere. If you're that good, we'll get you out there and bounce into that next level. So it could be an opportunity for us. But some of these kids might have to take a little bit of a less traveled road to get where they want to get, because